What is up, everyone? What is up? Why the hell do I keep forgetting to turn on my camera before I start? Maybe this is why I should check my equipment before I actually start. But I only pretend to be a professional on stream when it comes to the streaming stuff. Where the hell's my other? Oh, there's my remote for my other camera over here. There we go. Just wanted to make sure that was lined up in case it accidentally flipped over. We needed it for something. What's everyone up to this glorious, what is it, Wednesday? Yeah. What's everyone up to this Wednesday? So I did put a couple of videos up. I don't know if y'all saw that. I do need to clean my desk. I'm going to try to do that this weekend. I have my general ham radio test planned as well, sometime this week, next week. I don't know. It's happening pretty soon. My goal was to be able to, get a general license sometime soon for ham radio. So we'll figure that out. Yeah, it'll be fun. So that way I can get on HF signals. I wanted to get it, maybe in a couple weeks or so. So I'm just casually studying and everything like that for everything I need. And then, unfortunately, looks like I won't be able to do some more of the hardware stuff I was planning to do outside because it's supposed to be raining off and on for like the next few days or something like that, or at least over the weekend when I was planning to have some time. And yeah, because I have to finish the grounding for the masts, and then I have to actually install the antennas on the masts. Question for you: I recently implemented Suricata on my PF since I keep getting tons of false positives. Yeah, that happens when you just install it. You have to actually go and tune your settings. So almost no cybersecurity tool, just to make this very clear, is perfect out the box. I don't care if it's enterprise, I don't care if it's small business or personal, you're gonna have to tune that tool. So there are plenty of guides out there, because it's been a while since I've done my Suricata where I had to get my false positives and everything. You're gonna have to suppress different alerts, allow different alerts, like when it comes to like three-way handshake, stuff like that, I have to enable a lot of that because it was breaking things. IDS, IPS, intrusion detection systems and intrusion prevention systems, for those that are not aware, whether you're talking Suricata, Snort, there's many other systems out there like fail to ban, things like that. You're always going to have to tune them. It's just one of the unfortunate natures of the beast, but that's where part of the fun is when it comes to cybersecurity, is getting it specific to your environment. So there's plenty of guides out there, plenty of forums talking about pfSense, getting it tuned to the way you need it. Do not underestimate this. This is going to be a tedious, time-consuming process, and you're probably not going to get it all in one shot. I know when I install a pfSense firewall, I kept coming back to it months later. Every few days could be like, oh, there's this false positive, there's that false positive. And even, like that's why people have jobs in cybersecurity, is it's not a one and done approach. You're constantly tuning, refining, maturing, improving your entire posture for your overall system. So yeah, it's just one of those unfortunate things. Like I said, you're going to get false positives out the gate. It doesn't matter what system you go. But you're going to learn a lot along the way, because you're going to learn more about how the network operates, how the traffic is handled and everything like that. And it can translate directly into your professional career. Or if you're just doing this as a hobbyist thing, it's definitely a good learning path for you. I know it's part of what got me down the path that I did, so that I didn't have to get any certs or degrees before I got into this field. So yeah, my family are sending me dates in their local IPs to check if it's blocking stuff. Yeah. Been a few days and it's been consistent. Yeah, it'll be there now. The main thing is, hold on. Let me see if I can, you know, I had a list I imported a while ago. I can drop it over into, hold on, pass lists. So basically, you're going to need to learn about pass lists. I couldn't remember the term. I had to log into my system. You're going to need to set up pass lists. So I have a WAN pass list. And let's see. It's referring to my internet stuff pass alias that I set up. Friends don't let friends drink and root. Where did this go? Oh. Okay, so the pass list is whitelisting my DNS addresses so they don't get hit. And then it's also adding auto-generating IP addresses from local networks, WAN gateways, WAN DNS servers, virtual IP networks, and VPN addresses. There's also a suppression list. I can actually see about getting this. Let me put this in a notepad, and then we can go through it. I'm obviously not showing things because I'm going through windows that it's going to show a little bit too much than I want. My pleasure. Let me show you my little pass list I have here. And if you want, hit me up in the Discord or Matrix server, and I can walk you through it. I pulled this off of Reddit a couple of years ago, and it helped suppress quite a few of the alerts. So let me get this. Why should I not build my home lab out of my Think Center Tiny? You're not going to get any arguments from me. A home lab should be anything that you think is... I mean, I started a home lab with off-the-shelf computers that I got out of garbage bins and, you know, recycled from clients and stuff like that. Okay, so suppression list 2. And then let's get suppression list 3. I had 3 suppression lists in here. Okay, so this should help you with quite a bit of it. Of course, you're going to have to do some more individual tuning and everything. Let me close this out, and then we'll bring up my text editor, and we'll go through this. All right, Matt. So you're going to need pass lists. There's a few things in here that I whitelisted. That I kept seeing different things. So there's a few in here that I added in. So I can share these with you. There's a Reddit link I put in where I actually grabbed this. So you can easily... hopefully it's still up. Let's see. Because, you know, a lot of people were deleting their stuff on Reddit. So, yeah, there's a Reddit list over here. Oh, god damn it. Hold on. I just realized that my screen is not showing. Hold on. Okay. So I think I know. Let me... Really? You're not gonna work for me now? Oy, 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 oy. Every day, it's a getting closer. I wanna take a bath with a toaster. How do I want to do this? Hold on. That's on Windows alts like Atlas or Tiny 11. Don't do them. If you're looking at alternatives to Microsoft Windows, at that point, just go Linux. Here's the problem, and I've said it before. One, it's third-party stuff, and you can't always completely vet it. And I know people are going to say, oh, these things have open source and all that stuff. Bear with me. We're going to unplug the capture card and plug it back in. If I can remember where the connection is. So the problem is at what point are people just going to accept the fact that Microsoft is going to screw you over? And if you have to look at custom operating systems or whatever to do the thing that you want it to do of Microsoft, that you should maybe just, I don't know, move on. Gotta find the cable for this. I need a bigger workspace. I think that was the right cable. Hey! The good old unplug it and plug it back in. The magic of the sages. There we go. You're right, React OS it is. I wish React OS were stable enough that we could then all just give the finger to Microsoft and then move on with an open source Windows compatible operating system. Okay, so back to what I was saying. These are suppression lists that you're going to want to set up inside of pfSense. Out the box. This will probably get you roughly 90% of the way. Here, I'll move it over for the TikTok peoples. Just saying the other platforms have a better aspect ratio. Not me scrolling into your live, right? When you're saying take it. Okay, but this will take care of the majority of things. Because these were giving me a lot of false positives. And as you can see, there's a lot of rules being tripped here. So, I did make some comments on a few things. Double decoding attack, which was a false positive. Bare byte Unicode encoding. IIS Unicoding code point encoding. Non-RFC defined car. Basically, these were amounting to nothing burgers when I kept looking at them. Traversal utilities for NAT, you know, Suricata IKE v2 weak cryptographic parameters. You know, so these are like different things out there that I kept finding issues with. So, and then of course there were like ones I had to pinhole for different apps I was running, wherever their IP was, things like that. But yeah, so I found some good lists from Reddit. This got me a good chunk of the way out there, and they apparently pulled it out from this Netgate forum. And that's one thing that is great about when you're doing this kind of stuff. It hones your ability to do research for your home lab and thus also in your career. Because the honest truth is, you're not going to get spoon-fed all the answers. You're going to have to springboard and search out all the answers that you're going to need. Well, at least like 90-95%. So if you're looking for a career where you're like, oh, I'm just going to, you know, clock in, clock out, and then not have to do any extra work or that, this ain't it. Yeah, so like you can find, you know, different ways to suppress it in different ways. So like, as you can see, Suricata would hit on social security numbers with dashes, without dashes, email addresses, phone numbers. If doing inspection, if it's HTTPS encapsulated, it's not really going to see anything. Unless you do SSL TLS inspection, which would require things like squid proxy and all that, which I haven't really set up. But you can see there's lots of people sharing their suppression lists and all of that stuff. This will get you probably like 90% of the way to tuning your Suricata for your home lab. The rest of it, you're going to have to figure out. Only bad thing about using enterprise hardware at home is the power consumption. Yes and no. It depends on what enterprise hardware you're using. There's a lot of energy efficient enterprise hardware out there. I mean, you do understand there's ARM servers that actually use, that are enterprise. Like, you can get entire blades for, you know, racks that are ARM based. Now, as far as will all the software that you want it to run on ARM, that's another question. RISC-V is starting to get into the same, you know, pattern as well. But that's where you have to get, like, kind of particular about the hardware you pick. I've standardized on a lot of ARM devices for my things, although I do have some tiny Lenovo computers that I've been picking up for like 30, 40 bucks, and like from Hamvention and things like that. I'm probably going to throw one of those in for my Grafana dashboard / sim. So I'm going to try building sort of a sim to, which I had originally with pfSense, with Raspberry Pi, and then I realized it was overloading it with, one, the amount of read writes and the I/O on it, so I moved to a Rock Pro 64, still had that same issue, so I need a device that's going to have at least, in what I've seen, 16 gigabytes of memory for Grafana to be running the Prometheus and Telegraph and everything that I need to have everything, and then I'm going to feed all of my Unify switches and access points data in there using Unify Polar, and then have pfSense send its data over Telegraph. Now, the thing that I'm going to have to really figure out is the Suricata aspect of it, because that probably is going to need its data sent to something like Graylog or Splunk or that, which I'm going to have to figure out another system for that to normalize the data to be fed into Grafana, and then essentially have dashboards. And then also have the ability to do a consistent speed test every 30 minutes or so, because that's how I called out my ISP when they were dicking me on the bandwidth. They were like, no, everything's fine with your connection. I'm like, I'm consistently showing half the speed I'm paying for. You have a guarantee of best effort at 80%. And then, you know, throw in, you know, the whole FCC things, all that, although under Trump, and who knows what the hell that's going to go, because the FCC used to fight ISPs doing that. But yeah, if anyone here is at a firm looking for entry-level cybersecurity analysts, please reach out. Yeah, I know. It's kind of brutal out there for entry-level. I've been hearing entry-level, it's very tough for a lot of people because everyone's looking for senior level people. Like, they're looking for people at my level to do different things in different aspects of things. And then also you have the especially unreasonable requests from employers all the time. Like, they're looking for entry-level with the CISSP. And I was like, if you have a CISSP, you're not entry-level. Senior for entry-level pay, yeah. But now they're starting to see the light and paying a little bit better on certain things. Check in the Discord for your home rack. Oh, let's see. Home lab. Okay. Let's see. What you got? Nice. Got a little armoire set up there. Looks nice. Nice clean cables and everything. So you actually got pfSense hardware. Nice. And then you're using, what, these little SFP modules with fiber in. You got a fiber route into your... Oh, that's a Cisco switch. Hope you got that second hand, because they can be a pretty penny. For home lab, that is. Looks like a nice little clean setup. Happy hacking, bud. Oh, and you got the nice PDU down there. I would have personally, this is personal preference, gone for a PDU that doesn't have the plug on the outside, but the inside. The one thing that concerns me, like, overall it's pretty clean. That bend radius for that power plug, give it a little bit more slack. It just seems like a little bit too tight to me. Always be concerned with your bend radius for different electronic cables and stuff like that, because it looks like it's just getting a little bit stressed. That's all. But that's my only 2 cents. But that's also why I like, you know, the PDUs to have the plugs on the inside so I can plug them straight on. And it also gives a cleaner look. But that's my only little gripe, you know, with your thing. You got a nice little setup there. You got Sonos. I don't know what that is over there. It's kind of hard to see what that is. And that is over there. But yeah, looks great. Hope you enjoy it. You got Cat 6 the whole way through. Now, do these numbers over here correspond to where you actually have the end runs and all that, like labeled and all that? Because I know it was a B to get that set up. Do you run without a GUI while recompiling drivers every second? I think so. Wait, what? Have contract experience and personal project experience looking to break into the industry. Yeah. Am I able to isolate a single hard drive to a virtual machine? I don't want the virus to infect my main. You can potentially run a virtual machine on that, but the reality is that's, in the grand scheme, not going to isolate as much as you think it is. Because the reality is the virtual machine is still running on top of the operating system, either through a Type 1 or Type 2 hypervisor. But, you know, unless it has a hypervisor break, you won't really need to be concerned about it. It's more about having the VM disconnected from the network. Now, when in doubt, get yourself a disposable laptop or something and nuke it on that. You know, you can do that with like things like VX Underground and all that kind of stuff. You know, if you're tinkering and everything. But yeah, if you're trying to get into the contract experience and personal project experience, looking to break into the industry. Yeah, for analysts, it's, I mean, keep your head up. It's just kind of a tough field right now in general for tech, not just cybersecurity. Not saying it's impossible, it's just improbable right now if you're breaking in. It's tough for everyone right now. The issue is, and not to get on a political tangent here, Trump's tariffs have caused a lot of uncertainty to businesses that they've actually put hiring freezes on a lot of companies because businesses need to operate in the understanding of a stable economy and stability so they can predict growth and expenses and everything out there. A lot of companies plan their infrastructure and expenditures and things like that over a year, sometimes 2 or more. And if you suddenly have this wrench thrown in where they are now scared about costs rising and everything, that then causes them to pause because they then have to reassess the entire situation before they can move forward. That's the honest truth of it. I don't care what your politics are, but that's the reality of the situation. Trump has thrown a wrench into the whole thing with gears in regards to business operations worldwide. It's not just a matter of like, oh, you know, costs are going to go up from tariffs and everything. It's a matter of uncertainty for business policies. Say what you will about, you know, Biden not being the greatest or things like that. Biden did at least bring a relative amount of stability. That's what businesses need more than anything. This wishy-washy, we're going to do this, we're going to do that, we're going to, you know, tariff, not tariff, pause the tariff, you know, all that. The uncertainty is what's going to confuse a lot of businesses more than anything because they don't want to hire an employee right now that is not going to be able to be, how should I say this? If they don't want to hire an employee right now, that's going to cost them money if they have to consider balancing the overall books. That's the reality of it. Most companies consider hiring for new headcount and everything towards Q3, Q4 of the year. So a lot of the things they were already planning for in 2025, they already were looking to have set in stone Q3, Q4 of 2024, and Trump threw a wrench into all of that stuff. Like it or not, If you like Trump or not, I'm not particularly a fan of him, but that's the reality of the situation. I'm addicted to Fedora and GNOME. So much better than Windows. Good for you. I just built out the software end of my home lab. I'm hosting my own cloud storage and local models. That's great. Happy hacking. Home labbing is always the way to go when you're trying to get a bunch of experience and knowledge on different things. You can only learn so much from a book, but if you go through a book, if you go through classes, you're learning from what other people are just going to feed you. Whereas if you can discover the knowledge on your own, that's better, because that's more realistic of what you're going to be doing in the field when you actually have the job. The reality is, I don't care what cert, what class you get, anything like that. They're at most going to teach you concepts, but you're going to find a lot of weird situations that you weren't really prepared for, and you're going to have to dig through the nuance. Like, there was an issue with our email security gateway this morning that confused the hell out of me, and I had to pull in an architect, and he had to explain to me that the language was very confusing there, and we had to get the vendor in to confirm that the rules were set up. Because I'm not getting into the specifics of it, but that's the reality of the situation. And what I went through, trust me, no class, no cert, no nothing is going to prepare you for. It was only by virtue of the architect that I was dealing with having knowledge of that situation happening a few times prior, I was able to get through that fix. How did he figure it out was a lot of headache. Link cables to the winds. Exposed via Tailscale. I can't afford the hardware yet, so using some old laptops. Tailscale's kind of nice, don't get me wrong, but I'm more of a proponent for Twin Gate when it comes to Zero Trust network access. I just haven't really, and, people can correct me if I'm wrong, I've just not seen Tailscale in an enterprise setting as much, whereas Twin Gate is closer to the Zero Trust network access you're starting to see in enterprises, where they're starting to look at systems like Palo Alto, Cisco, Zscaler, and such. That's just my 2 cents. I'm not saying Tailscale is by any means bad. I know a lot of people that use it for their home lab. I'm just going more of the Twin Gate approach for myself. But I digress. I'm going through the chat here from all the platforms. Which Linux flavor are you using? I'm using Pop! OS Linux for my daily driver. I use Cubes OS for my security stuff, and then as I'm learning a few more red team concepts, I am using Parrot OS. I do use Kali in a VM sometimes, but I never use Kali as bare metal. Kali's not really good for bare metal. If you're going to run bare metal, use Parrot OS. That's just my 2 cents. And then for, the people that their parents didn't love them enough, you always have Black Arch, because, the Arch users are just going to tell you they use Arch. You know how it is.
Sorry, Miss Jackson.
All right, so let me close that VS code. Look, read the comments. Arch BTW. See, I called it out. Proxmox and Mint for the win. I mean, I like Cubes OS for containerizing a lot of my stuff inside of a computer. But, I mean, Proxmox is good too, don't get me wrong, in the server platform. Do you run without a GUI and while recompiling drivers every second? Didn't think so, bro. Where are you going? Fedora for the win. I mean, Fedora's okay. I just am more of a Debian guy. Is there a good place to get pre-terminated cables for rack setups? Yeah. Monoprice.com is where I've gotten a lot of my cables over the years. They're great. They're cost-effective. I'm not sponsored whatsoever. They're just kind of well-known in the industry for cost-effective cables. Really good quality. I've been using them for years. You can get them in bulk. You can get them, for a lot of that. There's also fs.com, yes, but Monoprice has been pretty good to me for the years. Oh, yeah, and I got more ham radio hardware we're going to be showing off. Well, more so cabling and all that, and we're going to show off some of the grounding equipment that I got. Let's go through some more of the comments, though. Efficiency's king. Efficiency king. Wait, what? Yes, it's all labeled. Just haven't done the labels on the patch panel. Replied on Discord, too. Cool. I just can't be bothered with Arch. Way too much. Yeah, the issue I have with Arch is I just want to have my setup working and reliably working. I don't want to deal with the operating system too much. Operating system, here's the thing. Nobody uses an operating system. Before you type in the comments, let me finish this point. Nobody uses an operating system. You use applications that run on an operating system. An operating system's job should be to start up, run my application, then get the hell out of my way. And if I have to interact with the operating system too much to make it do the thing that I need it to do, same thing in Windows. I've had that experience in Mac, in Arch Linux, things like that. That's a time waster to me. Some people enjoy that. I don't. I need to get my things down to business. I need to make sure I can turn my computer on, I can do the thing, and have limited downtime, if at all possible. That's just the reality of it. And I think a lot of people will agree with me. They don't want to deal with that BS. And they've even done surveys where the average person using Linux, the majority, they don't even rice their desktops and everything. I'm not hating on people that rice their desktops, but it's fun to do. Everyone that's a Linux person has probably done it at least once or twice in their entire life. But after a while, you're like, I'm just going to get my computer to work the way I need it to, and then off to use the apps I need. Hey boss, I'm 33 and going back to school for cybersecurity. What should I know at a base level? Honestly, home labbing is going to be a lot more beneficial to you. If you go to school, you go to classes, whether it's a cert or anything, they're at most going to teach you base concepts. The one reality that I always tell people when they go to school is by the time it's in a textbook, it's been in the field 3 to 5 years. And as we know, this field moves very, very fast. So while you're in school, let me make this clear. I'm not hating on anyone that chooses to go the school route. For some people, it's good. For some people, it's bad. It's also an expensive approach if you're in the U.S., because we pay for school, as you know. That I'm not going to weigh in too much on that decision. But I'm going to say, in terms of what you're going to get the most out of it is concepts, home lab, tinker, be curious. Curiosity may have killed the cat, but it builds the IT and cybersecurity professional. So be curious, explore, and ask why, how, what, when it comes to different things. And don't be afraid to break a few systems when you're, tinkering and all that, because the honest truth is you're going to learn more from failure than you will from success. That's the honest truth. Failure is a great learning opportunity, and I've learned more by breaking my entire network, trying out new features, and learning how these things operate. And, it's frustrating at times, I will be honest with you. But it's also very rewarding in the knowledge that I've gained over the years. So there's also a video I have, a couple of videos actually, for people that are, wanting to start out in their career over on the YouTube. Which, like one of the latest ones about this is the truth about certs, why your resume is getting ignored or something like that. It's a nice little, I think, close to 15-minute video that covers a lot of it. The other thing I will tell you is that if you are going to school, on top of home labbing, the most important thing to get a job is put yourself out there and network. Don't just be the person that, sits behind a screen, makes some LinkedIn posts, and think you're going to just do fine. Find your local tech groups, your OWASPs, your DEF CON groups, the B-Sides events that happen, your local cybersecurity events. Go meet people. And you will probably have to expense some money, whether it's, buying some brews because they meet up at a bar, or, in some cases, a few bucks for B-sides, which are relatively expensive, like $25 for most B-sides events. I think the most expensive one is like $120, which is the Las Vegas one. And, put yourself out there to meet people, because it's not so much what you know, but who you know for two regards in that, which is one reason why I've been building the Discord and the Matrix servers, is that with a community, you can all grow and learn together. And also, with the community, they can help you land more jobs potentially, or at least find opportunities that are out there and give you better perspectives on things. So don't focus just on learning the things, but getting to meet people in the field. One of the biggest issues that I come across with a lot of people that, meet me, whether it's in person or, chat with me on Discord, is they don't have any peers in the field with them, whether they're in person or remote. Build that community. Be involved. Put yourself out there. You'll be surprised how successful you become with, as the saying is, it's not what you know, it's who you know. And that's the damn honest truth there. Yeah, I have an old laptop with no drive, Tails on flash drive for sandboxing malware. Why would you put Tails on a flash drive just for sandboxing malware? I think that's kind of a wrong tool for the job, in my opinion. Don't get me wrong. Tails, I'm not hating on Tails by any means. This is one of those situations where if everything looks like a nail, what is it? If given a hammer, everything looks like a nail. You can easily virtualize ways to explode malware. Most malware is not virtual machine aware. That's the honest truth. And even then, you can, detonate malware on some pretty inexpensive computers, like going to a thrift shop and like $20 for a tower or something like that. You don't need anything too high end. It just needs to turn on, function, have a little bit of processing power for a modern machine, load a modern operating system, do the thing, unplug it from the network, observe. Or, you can even set up a local network that's not plugged into the internet, or and then just see what behaviors happens to be there. There's some cool things you can do where I've set up a firewall isolated from my network, where I took a switch, put it on my cable modem, had two different firewalls, one with a compromised network, and just inspected what was going through the firewall, how it was routing traffic and hitting different machines between that little LAN home lab there on, some inexpensive computers I had. Yeah. There's a lot of ways to, get into this. And that goes back into the curiosity of things. Let's catch up. Learn the entire MITRE framework off my hand. Oh, you're talking to someone else. This is why we have Bitcoin. Is there a book oh yeah. Oh, you're chatting. Yeah, I do agree with you though, Jay. The best option is to learn the fundamentals of networking, and that's one of the reasons why I recommend pfSense to so many people. I don't care what you're trying to do in tech. I don't care what you're talking, what part you're touching. I don't care if you're just trying to be a regular developer, not even cybersecurity related. You should learn networking. Point blank, period, end of discussion. Because I run into so many coders that know code, but have no freaking clue how the network works to interact with their things. I'm not saying they have to get so in depth into it to understand BGP and all that stuff. I'm just saying they need to understand the fundamentals of how the network works, because I've run into coders that don't even know how DNS works. There's an issue we had at work, because we're zero trusted, where devs would hit us up and then be like, we can access this thing from this site, but we can't access it when we're over on that site. And we're like, well, when you're on this site, year zero trusted, so it's actually being accessed technically externally, but you configured it only for internal access. So you got to put the DNS record on both the internal and external side to be able to hit the endpoints you're trying to do in the way you are. So what's the best way to learn networking? Set yourself a network home lab up. And pfSense, I've shown this many times, pfSense documentation is probably one of the better that I've come across to learn a lot of the basics. So if you look up the pfSense documentation, not only does it talk about the firewall and everything, but it will even give you a crash course in the networking concepts. Look, you have the OSI model over here. Understanding public and private addresses. Now, this is not by any means like in depth, but this will give you a lot of understanding. IP address, subnet, gateway configuration, CIDR notation. You know, a lot of this will help you understand a lot of networks that are in businesses, VLANs, IPv6. And then, you know, look, you got your basics. And this is even before it gets into it, because you have a section before you get to hardware. Tinker. Build things. Break things. And then, of course, read up on things. I always tell everyone, if you're going to be in IT or cybersecurity, be expected, and this is, you know, whether you're talking coding, developing, things like that, be expected to spend 10 to 20 hours per week on top of your your time working on your own time to hone and improve your craft. And that can be studying the news for new improvements of things, tinkering with projects, studying up on new technologies. That's the honest truth. I'm not saying your entire life has to be devoted to, you don't have a personal life or anything like that, but this is the true of any career. You'd look at doctors, you look at lawyers, you look at dentists, you look at psychologists. A lot of these professionals have to continually go and educate themselves because the law is always changing. Medicine is always changing. There's new discoveries, things like that. But yeah, this is not the type of career where you can just go in, clock in, and clock out. That's the honest truth. You're gonna have to spend some extra time on, you know, improving your career, home labbing, tinkering. Is computer info systems a good degree for IT? I know it's a business degree, but all my school has. Well, the honest truth is you're asking someone that didn't really get a degree to get into this field. I was already working in the field before I actually even got any kind of a BS degree. Now, I'm saying BS as in it was BS because I went to a school that was caught defrauding the U.S. government, and then I actually got my loans forgiven and everything like that. So the honest truth is I'm not saying not to go to school, but I'm saying you don't always need to go to school to be in this field. It's not always whether you go to school or not, it's not the easiest, you know, way to, easiest thing to, you know, get started in your career, no matter what you do. Because the hardest part is when you got you're just starting your career, people have to take a chance on you. And that's sometimes the hardest thing to do. That's where it goes back into, it's not what you know, it's who you know. Try hack me, home labs, break your Linux kernel thousands times. Pretty much. Best way to learn IT is hands-on experience. Yep, you can sit through days of training course and learn. Yep, totally agree with that. People starting out in IT, I always suggest a easy-to-use tool like Unraid. So many opportunities. Unraid, TrueNAS, whatever. There's so many ways to learn this. Like, look, I recommend pfSense all the time because you can use your own hardware. You may have to get an Intel network interface card and do a little bit of configuring and stuff like that. But you can even, like, if you're fortunate enough to get like a Cisco firewall, a Sophos firewall, a WatchGuard, things like that. Whatever you get to help start your learning is perfect. Don't worry about these people, like even myself, that have like really expensive home labs. They don't get to build those home labs their first shot overnight. The current home lab I have is, I want to say, the 4th or 5th iteration of the entire thing being torn down and rebuilt. And moving different places and things like that. So keep that in mind. Just keep tinkering. And don't worry about, like, you know, when people are like, well, you know, I have to have the pretty fancy new equipment. No, you don't. Does it work? Does it function with the things you're trying to do or learn? Then that's all it is. The value that should be derived of the hardware that you are purchasing to, or, you know, setting up in your home lab, is what knowledge and experiences are you getting out of it. And a lot of people, by the way, overlook the fact that you can set up a GitHub, you know, for your code and stuff. You can set up Git pages or, you know, static Cloudflare pages for your, like, little blogs or stuff like that, or set up a WordPress, document your journey, and then you can actually put that into your resume. I'm just telling you straight out, if you put on your resume your own custom email domain that people have to email you in, so it's not like, oh, I'm Timmy@gmail.com. It's Timmy at Hathor. Whatever. I don't care. Sorry, I was watching Stargate. So apparently an Egyptian goddess that is a Goa'uld came to my mind. But anyway, little things like that go a long way. You'd be surprised how these little touches help. The fact that I can at least put on my resume, oh, here's a GitHub. Oh, here's my custom email. And then I also get to have the advantage of, whenever I, you know, possibly start looking for another position, here's my ham call sign and other things like that. Shows, you know, little differences and things. Because at least when, you know, like, I can go, when people are like, why do you put amateur radio down on your resume? I'm like, because it shows that I understand wireless signals and propagations, and I can showcase the things that I've also done a little bit with signal intelligence. For some businesses, that's actually relevant, believe it or not. What are your thoughts on Ubuntu? It exists. Hi, Chief. Is there a website that lets you build a PC and learn at the same time? Lets you build a PC and learn at the same time? I don't know if there's anything that exists like that. Usually the learning of the building of the PC happens to go on when you're putting together the PC. The honest truth, though, is building a PC nowadays is not the most difficult thing. Now, I know a lot of people are, you know, looking at that and saying, wow, that's an arrogant take or things like that. No. Let me give some context here. Building a PC today is like an expensive Lego set. You just have to figure out how to fit the pieces together, install the software, and you're off to the races. But I will also say that anyone can build a computer. Not everyone can repair a computer. And building a computer today is a lot easier than it used to be, because I remember when we used to build a computer, we then were like, cool, now we got to install the operating system. Now we got to make sure the drivers are in the right order. Oh, I forgot, before that, we have to do all our IRQs and DMA channels and things like that, and set all that up in the right ways. Make sure your jumpers are in the right positions and everything like that. Y'all don't have to deal with half that crap anymore. You literally just motherboard, slot CPU to match triangle where it needs to go, put thermal paste down, put, heat sink down, put GPU in if you need, put the memory in, and then put the power supply in, plug it into a monitor, do your power on self-test, make sure everything's kosher, good, put it in the case, put your hard drives, SSDs in. Like, I can put together a computer in about half an hour if I really want to. Now, this computer took me a little while longer because I was making it pretty with running the cables clean and all that stuff. But I've, literally had friends call me up when they're building their machines and they can't figure out things, and I come over and it's like, okay, do this, that. Machine's built in an hour, installing OS, done. Just a pain in the ass for a daily driver. I use Arch, by the way. See? I'm not lying. I once tried to build an Arch setup. It was stressful. Yep. I originally was going to use Arch Linux on my laptop, but I didn't want to have to tweak my OS to just get it to work how I want it to work. Exactly. That's why I still use Pop OS, which is just, install Pop OS. NVIDIA drivers are installed out the box. Everything works the way I need it. The only thing I had to do on my Tuxedo OS laptop was install the special application software they had for the, the keyboard backlighting, the performance mode, the application to tune the, GPU and CPU cooling and all that stuff. But that's Tuxedo Computers. They're a Linux-focused computer, so they have that stuff there for Linux. I missed the Windows below. No disassemble. Yeah, you like my shirt? Picked that up at one of my cybersecurity events that I went to. You can find lots of cybersecurity events locally in many different places. You'd be surprised. Everyone knows of DEF CON, but there's also local DEF CON groups. There's also local B-sides. They happen like once a year. There's, your ISSA chapters, your OWASP chapters, and many other things. And there's also, like, niche groups that are, like, specific to different areas, too. You have any home lab OS recommendations, like TrueNAS, Casa OS? Those are all good ones. When it comes to home lab OS, don't get hung up on, like... Let me put it this way. I can recommend you everything under the sun. These are my recommendations. What I recommend may not fit your boat. Experiment, be curious, try a whole bunch of things. You'll find what you like and don't like and have some nice experiences along the way. The part that I miss about tinkering and home labbing everything was the excitement of when I first started, because everything was new. Now I'm, a little bit jaded and old, that now it's just different. I don't know how to put it better than that. But yeah. Chief is a bad influence. Tuned in to learn. Now have a home lab. Well, you're learning. Look. It could be worse. There are far more addictive things out there. Just remember, when it comes to home labbing and drugs, the first one's always free. I'm kidding. I wish Synology Linux OS had more customization. Yeah, well, Synology has also been kind of a D-bag, because they're doing some dickish moves that I'm actually wanting to get away from Synology for my NAS, even though I like their NAS OS and set up an infrastructure, because now they're trying to have people work on specific Synology-approved hard drives so they can squeeze more money. It makes no sense to me. So I'm looking at switching to QNAP or something else when I switch devices. I have a Raspberry Pi 4 with 1 gigabyte of memory, and I want to learn how to run a light server on it. What should I learn about? What kind of server do you want to run? I've seen people run little Minecraft servers on Raspberry Pi. I've seen them run web servers, file servers. You have to understand, when you're saying in the context of a server, what is a server in the grand scheme of things? It is a computer that serves data to client computers. Let's break that down to a simple analogy. When you go to a restaurant, what are you? You're a client. And you have to put your order into a server. And they bring you your food once you make a request. It's the same concept when it comes to a server. So when you're saying I want to make a server, well, just like there's many different restaurants that serve different kinds of food, there's many different kinds of servers that serve different kinds of data. So it's more of a, what do you want to experiment with? you can set up an Nginx, Nginx web server, learn good old Apache, maybe make a LEMP or a LAMP, Linux Nginx, MySQL or MariaDB, and PHP, and then throw WordPress on there. Or you could do a LAMP server, which is Linux, Apache, MariaDB, or MySQL, and PHP. So they're very similar. And that's actually a base for a lot of different server technologies out there. So I would really just like tinker and see what all you're interested in. And before you know it, you're going to be like, I'm going to have 50 million servers in my house. Do it. Isn't Unraid like $300? I think there's a cost to Unraid, but there is a free version. Yeah. Yeah. There is a paid for version that has like more features, but yeah, I haven't used it myself. Is a Flipper Zero worth buying? I want to work on some projects working with them. So the honest truth is a Flipper Zero, it's a fun toy. Pay attention to what I said. It's a fun toy. In the grand scheme of things, the novelty of this device is how compact all the features are in this. But there's nothing unique about this device. All in all, you can go on AliExpress, Amazon, eBay, and find the individual components to do the same exact features. You want to do Bluetooth tinkering? Cool. You can run scripts on any device that has a Bluetooth device in there. You want to do sub-gigahertz? Cool. Find any device like SDR, software-defined radio. This guy right here, I think, I forget the exact range, but I think it's like something like 50 megahertz to like close to 2 gigahertz. Right here. That's like $50 right here. You can like start plane spotting and all that. And yes, I know I need to clean off my desk. I have like energy drinks all over the place from V8 Energy. You know, like, so anything you want to do, you can break this down to its bare components. Now, at the end of the day, like I said, the novelty is how compact all the things are in here. The NFC reader, all of that. But there's nothing unique about this device. So if it's worth buying is more of a question of what value do you have from having a Flipper Zero in this? Because the honest truth is, I do tech. I've done some fun things with this. I've cloned badges at work and, you know, pretended I was my boss and had his badge and put it on a GG tag and stuff like that. That's all fun and dandy, but most of the time this thing sits idle. You can get like all these individual components I talked about for anywhere from $15 to $30 a pop for whatever you're trying to do. That's just my 2 cents. So I'm not going to say, yeah, you should go buy a Flipper Zero, or an absolutely like, no, you shouldn't buy a Flipper Zero. That decision is more based upon what you're going to do with it, because you may find yourself spending money on it and then it's just sitting down and gathering dust most of the day. That's my 2 cents. Man, chat's getting a little busy today. Is phishing still the main way PCs get compromised? The human's always the weakest link when it comes to cybersecurity. The human will always remain the weakest link. So yes, phishing is still the #1 way that businesses and, you know, individuals will get compromised. I know, like, so many people focus on like these amazing ways to exploit a machine and all that stuff, but in reality, the reason why there's so many phishing emails and phishing texts and all of this that's going out there is because it works. If it didn't work, they wouldn't keep doing it. That's the long and short of it. So phishing is still one of the biggest ways that we need to protect ourselves, whether we're talking about email phishing, SMS phishing, smishing. You've got, voice phishing where they're calling, vishing. I don't know why they call that. And now you have this other one that's really awkward to say, crishing or crushing. it's QR code phishing, because now they're, pushing out malicious codes. Like, you're getting an email with a code that you need to scan it. And that's why I will never just point blank just scan a QR code. I find the whole idea around that weird. And there's no real protections around QR, because its whole thing is to be quick. It's a quick response code. That's literally what it stands for. And the unfortunate reality is a lot of the systems that we have in this world, even when you're talking about like System Signal 7, which runs a lot of our roaming, and, like BGP systems, they all rely upon implicit trust. And that's how a lot of attackers gain access into systems, is implicit trust, or at least we as humans are very trusting creatures. We are social. We are able to survive and thrive by the fact that we live in a community. We can, work together, and, inherently most people are good, but there are bad people that will take advantage of that goodness in people so that they can benefit themselves, whether we're talking about cybersecurity or people that would like to get rich off the suffering of others, or, whatever. Man's inhumanity to man is always going to be amazing to me. In the worst ways. What recommendation for a PoE switch? I have to set up PTZ cams for live streaming. I personally prefer Unify. They're a little bit expensive. They're nice to set up. You will need a controller for them, like a Unify controller. You can set up a Raspberry Pi for them. If you're not doing those, Netgear's not TP-Link. I had some issues with them. Aside from the cybersecurity things, Netgear has some decent ones, but managed switches like from Unify, really great. You can throw them on different VLANs and control them in different ways. I have Unify switches in my house and access points. There's even VM websites that are just computers in your browser. Network Chuck talks about it. Yeah, there's different ones out there. Browserling is one that we use at work. It reminded me of the pen testing cluster my friends in college put together. Yep. What is the best Linux system similar to Windows and has hacking tools? That'd probably be Parrot OS. But it's still not that much like Windows. And let me make this very honest. People that want their operating system to look just like Windows, I understand where you're coming from, but I don't think people realize just how inefficient and bad the user experience is with Windows, that you should really open your eyes to other desktop environments and ways to use your machine, even if it's a little bit uncomfortable at first, because you'll find if you experiment and tinker, you're going to be like, wow, Windows was just woefully inefficient in how we did these things and all that. And you're talking about Windows, like being like Windows. You're what? Talking about a start menu? The start menu's from the 90s. That's a holdover from Windows 95. Come on. It's been 30 years. 30 years. Explore. Broaden your horizons. And if you do find after experimenting Windows is still like the flow you want, yeah, you can go to like Mint and all that. But the honest truth is you're not going to find one that has ethical hacking tools and looks like Windows, because it just don't work that way. People that are, tinkering and doing ethical hacking, they're also hacking for efficiency. And Windows is not that efficient. But Parrot OS is probably the way for most people. Theory for practice. Yep. I'm an embedded software engineer. Understanding networking is so important. Absolutely, Stabby. That's always funny to say your name like that. Wait, Stabby, weren't you the one that also said you're probably going to be coming out to DEF CON too? So what's the best way to learn networking? I think I talked about that. That's the PF Sense way. I'm catching up on everything. I'm like at the top of my chat. Chat's going by. So I'm sorry. I'm not ignoring everyone. Networking classes were offered as electives for my CS degree, not required for some bizarre reason. I don't understand that. And I also think when you go to learn networking, you should learn amateur radio, like ham radio, because in the world we deal with wireless signals, there's way too many people that do networking and don't understand wireless signal propagation, and it blows my mind. Hey, Chief, just scrolling and a gazillion% agree. Coders that don't know about port overlapping. Oh my God, yes. Coders are some of the worst at troubleshooting tech issues. And that needs to change. It's like this weird trend where you saw the coders of the 90s actually understood computers. And then, like, in the 2000s and on, coders only understood code, but then forgot about the rest of the machine. Or network, or whatever. Like, there's so many coders that don't understand their own environments that they're working in. Just jumping in to say you're awesome. Dude, can't stay. Have a good one. Cheers from Spain. Ah, thank you, Mr. Prepper. Phishing is still... Yeah, I answered that. Phishing is still the main way PC's getting compromised. You want to get into server hosting, really easy. Looking to Start 9OS. Oh, yeah, Start 9OS is really cool. They actually gave me one of their hardware servers back at DEF CON 31. This is a nice little device. It's made by Purism. But Start OS basically Dockerizes a lot of the things you want to run. And then you can access it all over Tor, and it's really cool. A lot of people think Tor is just do darknet. No, you can use it as a way to host actual legitimate things and not have to set up, dynamic DNS in your home network and then connect into your, things that way. There's different ways to, there's so many ways to skin a cat. Can I do IT and phishing? Well, if you're spelling phishing with an F, yes, you can totally do IT and phishing. I know a lot of people that are fishermen that do IT and all. I'm kidding. Yeah, I know what you mean. Would CompTIA be a good starting point? It can be. I don't have a CompTIA cert. I'm just being honest with you. The only cert that I have is the ISC squared CISSP. It's a little bit more of a, I guess you could say prestigious. Is that the right word? Where you have to have at least 4 years of experience if you have a 4-year degree, 5 years if you don't. I obviously don't have a 4-year degree. Certs can help, but they can also hurt if you have too many certs and not enough experience to back it. Just gonna put that out there. Hey, Hans, how's it going? But the reason they pay what they pay us is they always need to always be learning to be valuable. Pretty much. Drop out of school. Got it. Is it worth to buy a MacBook Pro M4 for pen tester? Absolutely not. The reality is, a lot of your pen testing tools will not work on Apple-specific hardware. There's a lot of issues with just different packages and things like that. If you're specifically trying to do a lot of things, Apple is actually a very limiting piece of hardware. I'm not saying this to be an Apple hater, okay? iPhone, okay? I'm a former Mac user. If you haven't realized, I like Pop OS. Hey, actually, look. Proof! I was a Mac user! At one point! And then I saw the light. No, really, Apple just went downhill. But you need to run virtual machines when pen testing and things like that. Virtual machines are not always the most reliable thing on Apple. I've literally seen where Apple will do an update for your operating system and then brick my entire ability to run my virtual machines, and then I have to roll everything back to a time machine. If you're seriously wanting to be a pen tester, your two avenues are this: pure Linux or Windows with Windows subsystem for Linux. There are way too many people I have actually, talked with. They've started their careers out, and, yes, you can go to Enterprise and, you'll find people that use a Mac, but you're going to realize very quickly the limitations in different ways that you can't pivot. Great channel, you teach us so much. Thank you, Jankovic. System 76 for any original Windows laptop to Linux. Yeah, System 76 is great. There's also Tuxedo Computers. There's also, Purism is okay. It's a little bit niche for some things. I have a Purism laptop. I love it. Don't get me wrong. But it's not a thing for everyone. System 76 and Tuxedo Computers definitely get my vote. HP, Dell, and Lenovo all have Linux-specific laptops as well. You just kind of have to poke around and maybe install the operating system yourself. But all three of those vendors on the business lines of laptops have really great Linux support because a lot of people are using Linux on their stuff. In fact, HP sells a laptop, the HP Dev 1, I think it was, with Pop! OS out the box. There's a video game where you build a PC. It's called Build a PC Simulator. Oh yeah, I forgot about that. Jumpers. PC Building Simulator and PC Building Simulator 2 is on Steam. Haven't ever played that. CPU jumpers, one wrong move and magic smoke. Oh yes, you can easily let the magic blue smoke out with the wrong jumper in the wrong placement. Jumpers for front side bus clock speed. Jumpers for IDE drives. Yeah, these kids these days don't realize how good they have it. And it's funny when I'm literally at work and I'm having... I remember, what was it, the other day? Someone tried to, correct me because I was giving a history lesson on IDE drives and how we had to do the jumper for master or slave drive. And they said, well, we don't really use those terms because they're kind of offensive. I'm like, well, that's the reality of what they were called, master and slave. It's literally on the drive. Like, may not be PC to say, but that's what it was. Steve, when are you going to stream Build a PC Simulator? I've already streamed building a PC. IRL. Black on black on PS or Magic Smoke comes out. Hey, Marco. Hello there. Hello there. Is that what you said on TikTok? I say a lot of things on TikTok. Could you be a little bit more specific? I hate my nickname at work. Want to guess what it is? Oh. Windows 11 more secure than Linux. Prove me wrong. Your rage bait is bad and you should feel bad. I've seen developers that don't even know how their port overlap in their applications they set up on their .env. Part of the reason they pay what they pay is to be valuable. We need to be always learning. Yep. Start 9. Wish the first home lab server was free. Yep. Docker was fun to learn. Docker is an interesting concept, and once you wrap your head around it, it's definitely very useful to containerize a lot of things and ship it that way. I need food. Hey, Ox. You tell you've explained this to lots of people before. Brilliant analogy. Oh, you're talking about the server and client analogy? Yeah. What is your preferred way to expose self-hosted services to the internet? Well, generally, I like to go streaking. It depends. It depends on what how we're trying to expose it. So certain things like honeypots, honey traps, honey nets, I will expose just point blank so that they can feed data in if they get attacked. Some things just have to be exposed. Usually you're going to have it behind a firewall, whether it's a WAF or, you set up a cloud appliance or, you have a hardware appliance or something like that. Some things need to be exposed through VPNs or ideally, if you can, zero trust network access. It's a myriad of ways. It's really situational for how I determine to expose things. There's no one size fits all. It's situational. And then sometimes we have to just suck it up and do a risky approach because we have no other choice because of how the vendor does it. So it's not a straight answer there, but that's the realistic answer, is it's situational. The Flipper Zero has been my EDC for 3 years now. Yeah. There's a cheap Flipper Zero with an ESP32 board and different software. There's plenty of different, concepts out there that do Flipper Zeros easy to do. Software on the Flipper Zero is really well polished. It can be. The same thing the Flipper Zero does with a Arduino and a couple of readers. Yeah, you can do a lot if you know what to do. Mess around with any LilyGo products? Yeah, absolutely. I have the T-Deck over here. No, this is the T-Echo. I have the LilyGo T-Deck as my everyday go-to Meshtastic standalone device. I like LilyGo. They're really inexpensive for a lot of tinkering radio products, and they have some other things out there that are pretty cool. Let's see. We're catching up on chat. T-Embed CC1101 is pretty sick. Yeah, I've seen. It looks really nice. Oh, you're talking to Stabby the Abbey. What's the coolest thing you've done with Flipper Zero? I cloned my boss's badge, work badge, and then I put it onto a GG tag, which is a reprogrammable e-ink display with RFID capabilities. Put my boss's name on it and badged myself in while he was there. And he saw, like, that's not your work badge. And I looked at him, I said, I know, it's yours. I can do fun things like that because I was proving a point of how insecure the old system we had was and why we should move to an encrypted NFC system. Now, was it a huge risk in terms of the system there? Not necessarily, because there's other physical protections they had and all that, but I was just kind of making a point of we had this one little gap there, and it was something that apparently one of the leaders in cyber already knew about, so he actually did one-upped on that and got a Raspberry Pi and a nice antenna and sweeped in like 30 badges around him from the department, all in one go. So there's different ways to go around that. I changed my usernames to my social security number and my banking apps for strong security. Funny. Hey, Florty, what's up? Y'all know a supply chain attack on QR code generating library could be catastrophic. It definitely could be. Have you ever had to go Karen mode on an employee? Oh, absolutely. There was an employee that we had that actually insisted, and the interesting thing was they were a higher up employee, actually insisted on us disabling their email security protection and had the audacity to say, oh, I can do the filtering on my own email. And I just literally, I didn't say this verbatim, but more or less I said this. I don't remember the exact words I said is, you're by all means, more than capable of, sending a risk exception request into GRC governance, risk, and compliance and have them deny that change, but I'm not going to drop your security just because you had a few emails caught. It bites. You have email systems get false positives. But we're getting tens of thousands of emails a day. A few false positives in the grand scheme of things ain't that bad when you see how many bad things we actually catch. And it was one of those things where I kind of went to the GRC guy and I'm like, I kind of am tempted to just say, let's do it just so he understands how overwhelming his spam is that we're actually catching. Because the spam he's getting in his folder is like only like 5% of the overall spam coming in. Not that I'd actually do it or advocate for it, but it'd just be one of those, just be fun for an FO moment. Let's see. We're getting onto the chat. What size monitor or TV do you use to game? I think these are 21 inches or so. They work. They're 1080p's, nothing fancy. I'm more of a utilitarian kind of person than I am, like, fancy, like, schmancy. I'll eventually go for, like, an NVIDIA 5000 series and then maybe consider going for higher-end monitors, but all in all, in terms of my projects, if it works, it works. I have so many different tech projects I do, I'd rather put my money overall into all the various different projects I can do than put it all into one thing. It's different for everybody, That's just my thing. Yeah, we're getting to the bottom of the chat. We're catching up. What about Ubiquity? What about Ubiquity? I'm sorry, look, like, you just were like, what about Ubiquity? I gotta know what happened, Question, why do people use Hyperlink i3 and things like that? Because they like it. Because when you actually have the ability to customize and tinker your computer and have full control of your machine, you can actually make your computer the way you want, not the way some faceless corporation wants you to use a computer. That's the ultimate issue that I have with Apple and Microsoft is they force you into a box of this is how you use a computer. And then it's not really your computer. It's your computer in the way that they want it to be. That's just my 2 cents. Nothing beats consoles for gaming. It just works better without tinkering. Keyboard and mouse master race, buddy. I can't game on a controller. The only time I use a controller for gaming is games that were designed for console on PC. But console gaming doesn't work nearly as well for a lot of the things I do. Because I like to just, you know, be able to flip in and out of work and capture the stream and everything. Who needs desktop when you have powerful terminal? Fair enough. Partly is the beauty of Linux. Customize it. Exactly. You like Meshtastic? I do like Meshtastic. Granted, you have to be in an area that people are around you that do use Meshtastic, but it's also a situation. This is the funniest thing whenever I talk to people that they're like, I want to use Meshtastic, but there's no one around me to use Meshtastic. And I say, well, then build a Meshtastic node, build a repeater so other people will want to use it. Because it's like this chicken and egg problem. I want to use Meshtastic, but no one around me uses Meshtastic. And I tell them, like, well, think about all the other people around you that are in the same boat. If you build it, they will mesh. People's ignoring all of us. No, I'm just catching up on it. Learning ham now is refreshing some of the stuff I learned in my networking class. Oh yeah, absolutely. Which, by the way, we got a box of some ham stuff to go through. I will be walking you through. Hey, Chief, what's your preferred? Oh, yeah, Ox. I think I talked about that. It depends on... Oh, from self-hosted apps at home. It depends. Some things have a dynamic DNS. Some things are VPN'd. Some things I actually have accessed over Tor. I have a Monero node that runs over Tor. Eventually I'll get it to work with I2P, but I haven't spent the time to set it up. I actually used my Monero node over Tor when I was at DEF CON last year to send my Monero through my Monero node over Tor so that I didn't have to keep my local node syncing. So I could pay in Monero at the Monero booth to get some Monero swag. So I used Monero to get Monero stuff. I've done that 2 years in a row. I don't know if I'll do that this year. Maybe. Send me Monero. We have problems with idiot sysadmins that has the power to set channels overlapping the occupied channels. Jesus. Those are schmucks that need to learn about amateur radio and interference and everything, aren't they? You learn a lot about interference and detecting a lot that, and Ubiquity should be able to auto-adjust a lot of that stuff pretty well. It does it a pretty good job in my home. I actually have to add another access point in the backyard now that I've finished up the backyard a little bit more, that I want to hang out there. So, yeah. Hey, X1 Aaron, how's it going? Linux. Bro, my dad works at Blizzard. What are you, the pirate software dude? How long does it take to learn Python for a complete beginner? Well, I was a complete beginner about 2 or 3 years ago. It's just a matter like anything. It takes some time and effort and putting your nose to the grindstone and just give yourself some projects to learn. It's no different than any other aspect you do with home labbing, which is give yourself a project and learn some things. Like, let me, and I've also been using AI to help me learn. I hate myself that I just said that. Not AI, LLMs. Like I've been using Amazon Q at work, and we've been using ChatGPT as well, although, been tinkering a little bit with Claude. But if you go to my GitHub, for example, some of these are projects that I've put together just so I can learn about things. I've got a project that I need to release as well eventually. I got to rework this entire thing. This is Domain Assassin. I got to rework that entirely so that I can make that public. That is a domain typo squatting tool. in Python using DNS twist and a few other things. But like this project here, this was my actual first learning project that I did so I could learn about Python and interacting with APIs. It's probably not one of the most well-written things. I still have to Dockerize the whole thing. And all that. I need to get back to coding on this. It's 2 years old, but as I've been busy. But this was literally my first Python project I gave myself. And the understanding of where this project came from was when Twitter started killing their API access. A lot of us were moving to Mastodon, and Blue Sky wasn't really that viable at the time. So I needed to build a way to announce when I'm live on Twitch. And by the way, this is still running on a Raspberry Pi in my home lab. Raspberry Pi 3B+. And all it does is it monitors my Twitch. It sends a poll every few seconds. And I need to completely rewrite this in certain ways because if you look at the config, there's a template here. You can program certain things. So I actually do have it set up for a secrets vault. But I want to get this working with Doppler Secrets Manager because that's what I prefer to use. But you can also have it like a poster interval so it will repost. So like say if I'm live for like 12 hours, I can say have it post on to Mastodon every 3. Check interval is how many minutes until every few minutes it checks. So eventually I want to rewrite this entire thing into a Lambda function. But I also want to get it working with Doppler Secrets Manager. But yeah, this was designed to go to Mastodon and post it on live because all the API access to Twitter is being killed. So I actually even built it to work with Twitter. But I'm going to yank this entire section out, which is in the code using the Tweepy library. And then if I scroll down, see, I comment my code. Using this, and then remove the Twitter stuff here. But yeah, you can spend a little bit of time learning a lot of different things. It's just a matter of give yourself a project to learn. And it doesn't have to be anything complicated like that. Like, you know, there's some bash files I've had in my GitHub. You know, like this is for split tunneling inside of Linux because, you know, certain VPN softwares, it was just kind of annoying to set that up. So I did that. You know, I even like learned to make some stuff in Python. Like these are like little finance tools I made just for fun to figure out mathematical calculations and how I can get that working. We have like an offline password generator in here. So like I can generate passwords in Python. So it's a matter of just giving yourself ideas, get curious. Like even if you're like reinventing the wheel, like, oh, let me make a calculator in Python or something like that. I'm still, I would say, nowhere near like an expert or anything like that. But I have at least a good understanding that I can, you know, stumble my way through figuring things out. But it's interesting that the more you learn, like you'll come back to your code 2 years later, like I was doing at work. We're doing code reviews because we have to move some Lambda functions I built 2 years ago for CrowdStrike into new environments and accounts that we're setting up. And I am cringing at a lot of my code choices from 2 years ago because I've just learned so much since then. You comment on your code? Wow, Renaissance man. Well, of course I do. By the way, this is one of the libraries I use the most, CrowdStrike's Falcon Pi. You can do a lot with this, but I'm also learning about CrowdStrike's Foundry, so I can build functions and do serverless applications inside of CrowdStrike that don't have to be hosted in AWS. But CrowdStrike's API is pretty powerful to do a lot of different things. So like I have it going in. I don't have code in my GitHub because obviously it's work related, but it goes through and will deduplicate devices. So like IT will provision new assets, sometimes using the same host name. So what I will do is have CrowdStrike run every morning. Well, the Lambda function I have query CrowdStrike for all devices that have host names with more than one device attached to them. So like 2 or more. Take the most recent seen one, keep that, hide the rest. And that's run after the auto containment. So I have an auto containment that actually goes through CrowdStrike, queries all the devices for the past 30 days that, haven't been seen. If they haven't been seen in 30 days, contains them. Pretty straightforward. Now I'm working on a whole step function for it, but I might move all of that work over into CrowdStrike Foundry, depending on what comes out of that. That's something I literally just learned about this week, and I'm starting to study a little bit more. And Amazon Q has been wonderful for that, because Amazon Q, I literally fed it a Lambda function I was having do the typo squatting. And I said, how can we, make this into a CrowdStrike Foundry function? Because the idea that I have for this, going to be a little bit vague here, but it'll make sense for a lot of you, is it'll actually go through all the permutations of company domains that we have. And one of the enhancements we had, because currently what it was doing was it was processing all of that in a Lambda function, serverless function, and then kicking out a Jira ticket. Do that once a month. Well, what if I had that go into a SOAR, a scalable orchestrated automated response, automation, to kick off every day or week, run all those permutations, then feed them into CrowdStrike as IOAs, indicators of attack, and preemptively block that. So imagine you have all these domains out there, like let's say you work for Google. You have people that are like sitting there with Google with 2 zeros or 1 0 or a typo where there's like an L. So instead of google.com, you're going to Gloogle. So that way those domains would be blocked at CrowdStrike. Then if I can manage to have it tie into Zscaler as well, have it feed that in to proactively block that IOA. But then I would also need to create a cleanup function for it, that if we go through all the IOAs in there and they don't exist, remove domains that no longer exist, because, you just need to keep it clean. But yeah. Catching up on chat. What about Framework? They're okay. I haven't used them in a while, so it's not like they're good or bad. It's that I have no comment about them. Although, Framework, if you see this video here, you can always send me a laptop and I'll try it out. Especially one of those new RISC-V boards you got going on there. Come on. Send me a AMD version of your board if you got one. And then give me a RISC-V board. I'll gladly cover both of them and tinker with both. And of course, goes without saying, it's going to be on Linux. But anyway, it was the HP Dev one, but they stopped selling it. Oh, they did? Oh, that's a bummer. I believe Lenovo sells ThinkPads with Linux as an option. They do. You have to look for which models they do have that include it, but it's not all of them, but they're out there. I've ordered a few in the past. Wait, networking engineer with that. Wait, what? That was his title? He does containerization stuff? Yeah, you can find people that, do different things. Docker's been really fun to learn. Next stop, Kubernetes. Your thoughts on folding at home? I actually used to do folding at home back in the days of ATI Radeon GPUs. I like the idea of folding at home. There's also SETI at home and things like that. This was when you had the advent of GPU that you could rent out your GPU cycles so that universities that couldn't afford supercomputers could have people donate resources so that you could get around to fixing a lot of the problems. So basically what they're doing is they're folding proteins to, like, say, go after cancer and Alzheimer's and all these different nasty diseases and everything out there. But obviously they require massive amounts of compute. Folding at home is very wonderful. And it actually was an interesting way to do GPU processing in a general sense before cryptocurrency really stole the thunder on a lot of that with, GPU miners and stuff like that. Unfortunately, I think since cryptocurrency has kind of taken, over for why a lot of people use GPUs for a lot of processing, I think a lot of processing for folding at home has kind of fallen off, which is kind of sad because, people always want to have a financial monetary incentive to do a certain thing, which is why they will do it. But I think it's worthwhile to expense a few GPU resources offline when you're not using your machine to maybe do better for humanity. But also, it's your machine, and that does put some wear and tear on your hardware, so do what you will with it. I mean, but yeah. He may or may not work for an ISP. Hey, VTuber Nero, how's it going? Jessica, how you doing? I don't know if I graded you in, or did you just pop in? Oh, it's the cool Linux guy. Am I cool, kids? Am I cool now? Did all those years of high school bullying finally pay off? Linus Torvalds literally designed Linux as a big FU to Apple and Microsoft, forcing people to use PCs a certain way. No, he didn't do that. He just kind of did it as a fun project to be an open source kernel. He literally said that this is just going to be a hobbyist project, nothing serious. Like, let me find this. Linus announcing Linux. Post. I think this is it. Linus Torvalds' famous email, the first Linux announcement. Linux has turned 28. Wow. Okay. Getting close to 40 years. Gooey. Okay, so we have the entire email thread here. Like, this is the entire email thread. Right, so I've currently ported Bash 1.08 to GCC 1.4. Does it work? Tell us more. Does it need an MMU? How much C? So you can literally see... Hold on. Where was the part that I remember reading? Hey, here we go. Hello, everybody out there using Minix, which is another Unix-type operating system out there, which it's still being used. If you use an Intel Core CPU, you'd be shocked to know that Minix is inside your CPU. You have like a little web server of Minix, if I remember, from the Intel Core ME and stuff like that, but that's a whole other rabbit we'll get into. I'm doing a free operating system, just a hobby. Won't be big and professional like GNU. Think about that statement for a second. For 38646 AT clones. This has been brewing since April and is starting to get ready. I'd like any feedback on things people like, dislike in Minix, as my OS resembles it somewhat. Same physical layout of the file system due to practical reasons, among other things. I've currently ported Bash 1.08 and GCC 1.4, and things seem to work. This implies that I'll get something practical within a few months, and I'd like to know what features most people would want. Any suggestions are welcome, but I won't promise I'll implement them. He never meant it to be big and professional. It was a hobbyist little thing he did that eventually just grew into this massive thing that created his entire career and legacy. Do I need SmurfTube for Cat 6? No, you don't. You might if you want to have it like cleaner for an install or that, but you don't need tube for it. I will say, like, you can easily like get Cat 6A outdoor rated cable and just direct bury it, but I would still say it might be better to dig a trench and then put some PVC conduit for it. Just because, you know, it'll make it easier if you ever want to replace the cable, because then you can cut one end and fish it out and then fish another cable through. Always build your cabling in mind with upgradability later, whenever possible. Any tips on using pfSense and OVPN behind a CG NAT? I gave up and made it local access. I am not too sure because I don't have CG NAT on my network, unfortunately. I know it's been a thorn on a lot of people's sides. You can possibly look at things. Well, no, dynamic DNS would still be an issue. I don't know about that. You might have to look up some forums and stuff. Lines 2 through 9 can be written as one line with all the imports in the PI file. 3, not 2. Oh. You comment on your code. Wow, a Renaissance man. I know, right? What happened to job security code? Me sewing code from 2 years. I was so stupid. Every self-conscious developer that keeps learning. Pretty much. Hey, Car, how's it going? Ooh, is it free? Just send me one. Wait, Framework now has RISC-V boards? Yeah, they have a RISC-V board that they've been talking about for a little while. I don't know if they're out yet, but I remember when they were releasing it, I thought that'd be really cool. So they actually do have it. It's $200. They have a RISC-V mainboard, so you can actually drop it in to any of your laptops. Now, it's using Sci-Fi U75 RISC-V cores, and it's compatible with the Framework Laptop 13 chassis and the Cooler Master mainboard case, apparently. It only has 8 gigabytes of LPDDR4 soldered in. Don't really give you a better picture, do they? Oh, I can zoom in just a little bit. So it's really for tinkering with developers and stuff like that. But they have a RISC-V board. That is one of the things I would like to play with. If I got a Framework laptop, I would probably get that. Not sure if you commented on this earlier. Do you think SKG would have gotten the traction it did if Pirate Software wasn't a douche? So, I remember somebody put a graph out talking about SKG's momentum, and the unfortunate reality is it was doing pretty well in momentum. Then Pirate Software talked about it, and he happened to be the largest video talking about it. Accursed Farms talked about this as well, the guy behind SKG. So that was the reason why many months later Accursed Farms made his response to Pirate Software, because it was the biggest video about SKG and it was negative and misconstruing a lot of things and all of that. Let me put it this way. I think SKG would have done well without Pirate Software. However, at the same time, Pirate Software made it even more successful because of all the drama surrounding the entire situation. Now, the interesting thing that I'm seeing with Pirate Software's drama and everything, besides the fact that for some reason my YouTube algorithm is so effed that it keeps feeding me all these creators talking about Pirate Software, is all the different people that are talking about Pirate Software from different angles. Myself guilty as that. I came from the cybersecurity perspective about different things they've had an issue with Pirate Software for. You had people like Destiny come out. I think even Asmongold made a video. I don't really follow him too much. I just am aware of him. You had Coding Jesus, which apparently is one of the more popular videos from what I've seen talking about in my circles, that went through his code and everything like that. And everyone's taking digs at the guy. I think SKG would have been successful even without Pirate Software, but Pirate Software, I think, had the largest dampening effect early on. But at the end was also the catalyst to get it better. However, I will say this. How do I put this? Everyone's capable of making mistakes, misconstruing things and misunderstanding the intentions or what something's about. Like, look, I've said it before on many of my streams. In my early 20s, I was an absolute dick. I thought I knew everything. There's many things I said years ago that I don't agree with now. I would probably go back in time if I had a DeLorean to go 88 miles an hour, stick my arm out and slap myself. But that's part of growing up, is we learn from our mistakes. I think a lot of people are having issues with Pirate Software on the doubling down and tripling down on things like that, and just more things coming about it. Like, I think, was it Coding Jesus actually went through, or one of the other developer ones that actually said, like, they're, like, analyzing his lighting performance with the game and stuff like that, and then he had a rebuttal of, well, my game runs on a fridge, and then people are saying, no, you had the fridge as a monitor. You know, it's just this kind of weird thing where it's like, we need to know when we've done wrong and admit when we've, you know, made mistakes in different things. You've seen things in streams where, you know, I've been like, I don't know if I necessarily agree with this. And then I come back maybe after I read it, I understand it a little bit better, and I change my mind on things. And sometimes it may not be immediate. Sometimes it's days, sometimes it's weeks, sometimes it's months. Sometimes it takes me years to learn that my original position was wrong, or I disagree with it for a different perspective, because, you know, we grow, we evolve, we mature. But back to your original point, I think SKG would have done really well, but I think Pirate Software had that really large dampening effect. But by virtue of Accursed Farms making the rebuttal video, pulling back to Pirate Software's original comments and debunking them line by line, gave it more momentum, with the side effect as well that Pirate Software is getting hit on, or getting hit by, like, so many different people. Not hit on, hit. Like, I've seen, like, so many different things, like, drama-related things to Pirate Software that I'm not even gonna bother repeating, because it's not worth repeating. You know, people are going into, like, his personal life and things like that, and I'm just like, okay, I'm gonna stick to where I know tech and I can actually have an answer there and not, you know, go deep into that. But yeah. Anyway. Chief, you're the safe uncle. Am I? Am I the safe uncle? Wait. Am I basically the Linux Uncle Iro? Where, like, Iro did a lot of wrong in his past, and now all he wants to do is sip tea and pass on his wisdom. If so, that'd be really cool. Which is easier to start in, red or blue? Well, to start in terms of learning, that's more of a personal journey for what actually, you know, makes more sense to you. There's different ways you approach both. Now, I will say, in terms of if you want to start a career, if that's the question you're leaning towards, blue team is a lot easier to start your career in. And there's no saying that, you know, nothing wrong with saying that you can eventually go from blue to red. And the thing I will also say is that the best people in cybersecurity, the best blue teamers know a little red team, and the best red teamers know a little blue team. It's yin and yang, baby. A little good and evil and good. That's why even I learn a little bit of, you know, pen testing stuff, so that I can better understand how to defend things and put my myself in the shoes of if I were an attacker, how would I pivot to attack these things, which then gives me the idea of the defense and feeds into both sides. But companies are more likely to hire blue team than red team just because of the amount of work that is usually entailed in a blue team setup versus a red team setup. Red team tends to be a lot more, not always, but often companies that are contracted to pen test different companies and getting different contracts. And, you know, it's not that often that corporations have built-in red teams to do pen testing on their own things. They're usually hiring pen testing companies. Didn't Linus make Git to solve a personal problem? Yes, because he was using Subversion, and Subversion was a pain in the butt. So he created Git to solve a problem. Linux was created to solve a problem that he had. Git was a thing to solve a problem that he also had. Some of the best creations that have come about is because people were going to solve a problem. Let's go back to, you know, when I was talking about my repository. Why did I teach myself Python? Because I needed a project to get working. Because if this then that stopped working with Twitter, and no one had the ability to have a tool to integrate into Mastodon to post when you're live on Twitch. So I made one. It's not the fanciest thing, it's not the prettiest thing, but it works. Eventually I want to get this working with Blue Sky too. That's what a lot of the, you know, coders out there, when they're creating these projects, why did they create the thing? Well, I had a need and I went to go fix it. Damn, school failed on Linux knowledge. Love being correct. Yeah, there's a lot of people. What you drinking? Portuguese green wine? Yep. I love my Vino Verde. Paranoia Archives. How's your day? It's been okay. I'm still trying to get through, day 2 of being on ADHD medication again for the first time in like 10 years. I have to go get a referral for a psychologist, but probably won't be done until I get back from DEF CON. But they at least got me on some non-stimulant medication. One of the bonus side effects is apparently it has appetite suppression, so I could use that for potential weight loss. Yay! Literally seen him saying that he did that to be able to complete the kernel. I can believe it, because before he was using Subversion, and Subversion was kind of annoying. If you've ever had to use Subversion, it's not the easiest thing to work with. Git is very nice and easy to work with when you're doing code tracking and changes and stuff like that. Despite pointing out that Pirate Software's code was pretty craptastic, I feel that Coding Jesus was very respectful in the way he presented his points. Oh yeah, I totally agree. I think Coding Jesus was very respectful. I will honestly say there's a lot of creators out there that were, of course, not as very respectful in the ways they were going after Pirate Software. I even tried my best to be as respectful as I can when disputing Pirate Software and making my videos about him. Because the thing I look at it is, if people were to make videos about me when I'm in the wrong, I'd like it to be in a way that it's respectful so I can understand their points, and we don't go attacking a person with ad hominems and all that. I have people that I've seen gone into like drama in his personal life, which is not even worth repeating here. Y'all can figure out all that. I don't care about those kind of things, because I don't know the person, and in the grand scheme of things, the things that I've heard, not even worth really drudging up. But, you know, you got content farmers out there, so what can you do? In order to crack a system, one must understand why Blue Team did something. Exactly. I run into a lot of pen testers that don't even understand a lot of the modern ways we do enterprise security and things like that. They focus on like novel security, like vulnerabilities and software and everything, and then are, gobsmacked when I say, that's cool, but you do realize in an enterprise like this system would be like zero trusted. How would you be able to hit that system with it? How do you bypass these security systems? And they don't consider the layer of the onion layers that are there around many business enterprises, and they focus on like, well, it's the average end user, and I just have access to the system. I'm like, that's cool. You can get into your grandma's PC. Grandma ain't that much of a target. I mean, for phishing, things like that, yes, but you get my point. In order to defend against Red Team, one must be paranoid about the most outlandish attacks. This is definitely true. What's up, JMJ Gaming? Push Bullet isn't working on Chrome anymore, and others like it want $3 a month, and I'm working to build my own app, then pay. Yeah, see? Although, to be fair, Chrome's been a bag of dicks because it's Google. Isn't Google trying to like merge Android and Chrome together or something like that, which is kind of weird because isn't there a whole court case to like split the two up? I saw there was a story about that in Discord. I should probably pull that up so we can actually go through it together, I guess. Let's read the news, children. Hold on. Where was this? Yeah. Google confirms it's combining Chrome OS and Android into a single platform. This might be the first time Google has publicly confirmed plans for the platform merger. Now, if Google Chrome and Android merge into one singular platform, Google will get more data on you than they really had before because, well, yeah. That's really annoying. And that's also probably why they're making it more difficult for the Android open source project. The problem is, I always had this feeling Google would do whatever they could to get people to adopt Android, make it the dominant platform, and then they basically pulled a Microsoft. You realize that? Embrace, extend, extinguish. This is more or less the Googleification of the embrace, extend, extinguish that Microsoft was guilty of doing with the Department of Justice that eventually ousted Bill Gates in, what was this, the late 90s, early 2000s? Yeah, Chrome OS to absorb Android. Will this mean we will have Chrome phones? Probably. A little bit of pen testing we do is testing users' knowledge on handling unexpected lines of communication. 99% of the time we get hit, it's phishing for the benefit of spammers. Yep. If that happens, I'm going to try to switch to mobile Linux and contribute to what that FOSS project as I solve issues. It would be nice if there was an actual, true, full Linux phone that was viable both in a software and hardware platform. The problem is, these are two of the most popular Linux phones. Batteries only last like a couple of hours on there. And they're so bulky. Well, this one has a keyboard that you have attached to it, so it's not that bad. It's an extra battery and stuff like that. But this guy has a chonker. Both of these phones are not really usable as phones as it currently stands. That's the unfortunate reality of things. I would like to see a full Linux phone take over and move away from Android. And then what we could do is use like Anbox or something like that. I think that's what it's called. So then we could run Android apps on Linux. Linux, I mean, Android has always been a bastardization of Linux. They split the kernel into their own fork and then ended up still having to backport all the changes that were being done on the mainline Linux kernel. And it hurt them so much that they then realized they had to remerge into the main Linux kernel. But what's interesting is when Google's like they're confirming their plans for Chrome OS and Android into a single platform. I remember when they were doing the whole development for Fuchsia OS. I was seriously under the impression they were going to supersede Android with Fuchsia and then throw Android by the wayside. So they'd have something a little bit more under their licensing control, but maybe I was wrong. And back to my point on Pirate Software. See, I can admit I'm wrong. That wasn't hard. If they made a Pine phone with better specs, they'd probably consider getting one to play around with. Maybe use tip to try to dial in with the battery life issue some. So the issue with the Pine phone isn't really the hardware per se. It's software optimization. The software really needs to be optimized for mobile phones. I'm talking in GUI and everything. That's the issue with Linux phones. Even using, but I mean, there definitely would be better specs. Like, don't get me wrong. Like, 8 gigabytes of memory at minimum. 16 would be nice in a mobile phone. Maybe I'm being overkill here because I'd also like the idea of my mobile phone becoming my laptop where I can dock it and then keyboard and touch screen and maybe plug in a mouse or something like that. I think it'd be a really cool concept to be able to say, remember the other day I was showing my MNT Pocket Reform and how I want to upgrade to the RK3588 after I do the update, which, by the way, I wanted to originally get to tinkering with this tonight. I think that's going to be a Sunday project where we're going to tinker with it. I'm going to try to get on stream a little bit earlier than the 7:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time that I do to tinker with this, so we can install the better cell modem and everything and get this prepped for DEF CON. But I digress. Back to my point. Because like all next week, we're going to have to start tinkering with getting my stuff together for DEF CON. But I think it'd be really cool if we could get the idea of a cell phone that can become a full-on computer, similar to what the Samsung DeX and all that's doing, but I mean a full-on computer. Like, it would be really awesome to have a Linux phone. You can plug into a monitor and a keyboard and a mouse. Have a terminal session and everything I need to do. And do all of my basic applications and tinkering, and then maybe throw up an IDE, start coding, and then put down my work, pick up my, unplug my phone, and boom, regular phone mode. I think that would be my ideal approach to a Linux phone. But I don't think we're there yet, and we may not be there for a few years. I think in terms of that approach, this is probably going to be the closest I'm going to have for a while. Cyberdecks and mini PCs like this. But even this needs some improvement, as we've seen, as we've witnessed. But I digress. Gotta use low-level languages instead of bloated high-level languages to truly start optimizing resource utilization on mobile. Well, yeah, even on Windows, like, what was it I was reading? Microsoft Windows is using React for the start menu. And the start menu, like, have you ever used Task Manager and seen the CPU spike when you open the start menu? And apparently a big part of it is because when you open the start menu, the recommendations are the biggest drain. And there's just some inefficiencies there because React was really not meant to be running for local apps. Like, if you talk about, like, You know, like, there's some seriously unoptimized applications and things out there. Um, like Discord. Discord, more or less, if I remember correctly, and if I am wrong, please correct me. Discord is more or less a web browser wrapper. You're basically opening a web browser to open the chat. The experience with Discord is really not much different from the local app than if you log into Firefox or Chrome or Brave or whatever and log into Discord and use it. And that is why the local desktop app for Discord is so freaking bloated. What about running React on a 12-plus year old household appliance? Well, that's just how you start fires. We didn't start the fire. It was always burning. It was always turning. God damn, I got so many bug bites. Yes, it's become an issue where I work. We're a Microsoft environment. And if the computer is on low RAM at all, the start menu will not open. Well, yeah, at work, we standardize on laptops that have Core i7s and 32 gigs of memory. You need to have that. I remember the funniest thing is when we dealt with the VoIP company, they're so woefully unoptimized that they were like, well, why don't you throw more memory at the problem? And then when we threw 64 in a machine, it suddenly worked. And I remember there's some back and forth, and even IT was on our side. Like, these machines already have 32 gigs. It's a VoIP client. We shouldn't need 64 gigs on every single machine company-wide just for a VoIP client. And I don't like this attitude that a lot of developers have, which is just, oh, just throw more hardware at it. How about you optimize your damn freaking code? Can the same be said about VS Code since it's also Electron, which is Chromium? Yeah, pretty much. A lot of these apps now are basically just wrapping themselves around a web browser. It's annoying. It really is annoying. And web browsers have become bloated hunk of junks. Like, when did we get from the web browser that would run on a system with 128 megabytes or 256 megabytes of RAM and be just fine, to now we're at the point where a web browser needs to have at least 4 gigs of memory or something like that? How did we get here? It's ridiculous. And we have a lot of devs out there that are like running, clunky code and just saying throw more hardware at the problem. I mean, if I remember, Donkey Kong 64 was another example of that, where it was a game that came with the expansion pack. The expansion pack, for those of you that don't remember, was a memory expansion for the Nintendo 64. And as I recall, there was a bug in Donkey Kong 64. Again, correct me if I'm wrong. That they couldn't resolve. And the fix was run it with the expansion pack. And that's why they included the expansion pack with Donkey Kong 64. This has been a problem even since the 90s. Maybe even longer. Remember, there used to be the whole saying that nobody needs more than 640K of RAM. Now my Word documents are more than 640K. Really can be. It's a big-ass document, though. That's my little rant on that subject, though. Yeah, it's just everything is getting a little bit too bloated, and I don't like it. I mean, it's one thing for me to have a machine because it has 64 gigs of RAM because I'm running multiple virtual machines and all that stuff. It's another where we're now living in a world where it was only a few years ago we were like, oh, 16 gigabytes of memory is more than enough for your video games. Now you need to get 32 gigs just to play games. It's not just React. There's still things you can do in React to optimize resource utilization, like not importing an entire library to put letters on the screen. Just a laziness among software vendors. Oh yeah, there's ridiculous things I've seen in coding. Like people are importing random libraries and not even inspecting the libraries, and that's a new attack vector for a lot of people. Um, yeah, it's just ridiculous. It's ridiculous. Even I'm, a crappy coder who just does some Python, Bash, um, PowerShell, Terraform. Um, I at least still try to find better ways to do things. Import libraries until the code works. Pretty much. Like I try to import the least amount of libraries possible. Unless there's things that make sense for me to actually do it, so I'm not doing custom API calls. Like, I'm obviously not re-engineering CrowdStrike Falcon API calls. So in import Falcon Pi, I'm obviously not going to reinvent the wheel with AWS. So I'm obviously going to import Boto 3, which is the AWS module for that. I'm obviously not going to, do the same thing with Mastodon, and Twitter, and all this other stuff and everything. But I've come across some code libraries where I look at the person and I'm like, look, I am by far not the best coder. But what the hell, man? Were you high when you were doing this or something? I don't get a lot of coders, and especially the new ones. And I think LLMs are also making it a little bit worse. Um, don't get me wrong, LLMs are a very great assistive tool. I was talking to my architect about this earlier because I'm using Amazon Q, ChatGPT, and then DeepSeek and some stuff locally. But even if I have AI create, LLMs create code for me, I want to understand what it's doing. I don't like this, saying that people are having where, well, like you have Jim over here that's, learning code the old way and making a project, and several hours in, he's still, studying, how to get the API endpoints working, whereas Tim is over here with the LLM and he's already got his, first version of the minimum viable product out in like 4 hours. Well, here's the thing. Does Tim actually understand how his code freaking works? Because Jim's going to actually understand it at the end of the day. And I think that's the problem. That's, I think, a slightly bigger risk. Because, yes, LLMs can make code that ends up doing the right thing. But unless you know better, it could be the wrong thing altogether. Much as AI agents do, they tend to be too dependent on libraries for no good reason. Like, yes, I have seen AI agents import libraries for letters. I mean, with Python, you can import parts from packages. I don't really write much Python. Aren't many of those libraries actually written in C and C++ too? They can be. I think they can be, because Python, you can have Python call upon things in the system. Like I've had Python scripts that do specifically Linux things in Linux Unixy type ways, just because it was easier for me to script when I needed to do that. than it was to remember how to do the same function in Bash. And when I write Python at work, it's Python 2. Why are you writing in Python 2? Your code is bad and you should feel bad. Your code is insecure and you should feel insecure. Me using COBOL. You know, COBOL is actually a high-paying language because there's so many jobs out there to interact with the old mainframes and everything out there. Because it's such a dying art of understanding these mainframes, and a lot of those people are retiring. I've seen job postings for $150,000 to $300,000 a year to write in COBOL. That's the least of the problems. Bankers equal COBOL and assembly. Yep. Mainframes are a really cool piece of technology I wish I could play more with, but I just don't have much use for ZOS. ZOS is kind of interesting, though, in the way it can work and how the fact that mainframes still exist because they're really great number crunchers for the things that they do. And they're just like freaking solid workhorses. It's really interesting. But yeah, what's up? But yeah, I'm gonna be getting ready for DEF CON and B-sides and all of that stuff in the coming weeks. Like I've been talking about, I will make sure that in the Discord that I can share my notes and everything. I'm trying to also get a pre-shared key out for Meshtastic. So if anyone brings their Meshtastic device, maybe our group can chat with each other if we're close to each other. I'm thinking because it's at the Las Vegas Convention Center and all of that, we should be relatively close to each other, that we should be able to send messages to each other, and it'll be interesting to see what's on the open network out there. I am hoping to be able to do a few meetups at B-sides and DEF CON and the DEF CON shoot. I still got to go get some more supplies for the DC shoot and stuff like that. I've heard a few of my community are actually going to be at DEF CON. So it'll be really cool to run into all of you people out there. If you do run into me, I won't bite. I'm usually pretty chill. And unless I'm rushing to a particular talk or event, I'll usually stop and chat with you. But if I'm like busy and like running around to, you know, go to another event, I'm not trying to be a dick. It's just I got my little schedule I gotta, you know, stick to for things. I gotta look through the Hacker Tracker app to find all the talks and everything. I was looking at some of the things like the Sky Talks for B-sides. I feel like the Sky Talks for B-sides this year weren't as enticing, but there were some courses and trainings they had that were really interesting, so I signed up for a couple of them at B-sides. So I'll probably be at B-sides for the first 2 days, then the DEF CON shoot, then DEF CON. But yeah, I think it'll be a great time for a lot of us. Just got a call from my grandmother. Got a computer virus. Turns out she's using AVG free. Wasn't you just using the... Why do people install AVG free? Just use the stock Windows Defender if you're going to use a free antivirus. But yeah, that sucks. And also, your grandma's got at least 2 viruses. She's got the virus and AVG, which is another virus. Free antivirus, unless it's open source or, you know, one of those removal tools from like ESET or something like that, are usually bad in their own right. Just use Windows Defender for free. If you want to pay for an antivirus, Bitdefender's pretty good. ESET is pretty good. Those are the two I usually lean on in the consumer sense. In enterprise, I'm a fan of CrowdStrike, but you know, when you're doing enterprise, you're doing more EDR, XDR than just simple antivirus. I do want to mesh with Meshtastic. Any recommended Meshtastic devices for power users? So there's one that I use. It's a LilyGo T. When I'm at DEF CON and B-Sides, I'll probably show off my devices being used. So they have the LilyGo T-Deck, T-Deck Pro. Rockland also has a setup here. Let me pull this up. So this is the T-Deck. You can get it where you have to put your own battery in. You know, customize it however you want. The T-Deck Pro is interesting. I don't have this one, but it looks really interesting. I do want to play with the T-Deck Pro. A 4G module? Wait, can I have 4G? That's interesting. I'll have to see that. But then there's this LilyGo T-Deck over here. You can pick up from Rockland. That's the setup I have. They have a 3D printed case. I just got it because it was cheaper to buy the kit than it was to put it all together. Because I would have pretty much made the same thing. So you can get the no case version. You can get the T-Deck Plus, which has everything pre-configured there. But the reason why I like the Complete is they soldered in the antenna and gave you decent antenna and everything. So this is pretty much more or less the system I would have built. Now this is standalone, so you can use it without your phone. Now, if you do want another device, here's one, the LilyGo T Echo. This is another device over here that I like. And then for my dogs, I gotta get one more of these eventually for when I go hiking in the fall. These are nice. SenseCap T1000. Most of these devices, by the way, have GPS built in, so you can enable, disable it. And the idea I had with this is IP66, 65, 67. It's decently outdoor rated. Was I was going to shove this in my dog's vest and then connect it to my devices so I could have this program sending out GPS, and then I could track my dogs. So I want to get one more of these to track both of my dogs. As you see, it has a little magnetic connector. See? It's got a little buzzer in there as well, so you can send a message, and then it's got Bluetooth to pair it to your phone. So you can either get those paired to your phone or have a standalone. Then the LilyGo T-Deck, because you need to get, you know, if you're going to do like pre-shared keys for encrypted channels and stuff like that, like I'm going to be setting up for the Renegade Penguins that are going to be at DEF CON and B-Sides, you do need to connect it to your phone over Bluetooth. There's a way to do that. And then drop the key in, and then you're off to the races. You can also plug it into your computer and do the same thing. I tried to use ClamAV, but messed up the scan and crashed my computer. Ouch. Exactly, now I'm being asked to use a virus remover instead of wiping the machine. Yeah, see, I would have just nuked that computer. I remember my grandmother used to mess up computers so much that, eventually it got to the point where I just set up Linux on her machine, showed her where her software was, and then when she wanted to get a laptop, my cousins went against my advice and bought her a MacBook Pro, or a MacBook. And I was like, guys, I know you can afford it, but are you going to replace that computer when it goes bad in a few years, or, you know, do the support? No. So eventually I got her a Chromebook. And it was great, because the Chromebook, she called me up. My computer's not working. All right, did you turn it off? No. Turn it off. Turn it back on. All right, it's working again. Cool. Call me again next week. I'll tell you the same thing. Turn it off. Turn it back on. be honest, I think a lot of grandparents, that's all they need is a Chromebook. That's just my 2 cents. Oh. But I am getting a little bit tired. I'm going to try to maybe stream tomorrow. Emphasis on maybe. And if not, worst case scenario, I will be back on Sunday, which is our usual scheduled time. I will try to get working on my technology. We're going to be tinkering with my laptops. I got to get my Purism laptop updated for DEF CON. So I got to renew my Mulvad subscription and stuff like that for my poor man ZTNA setup. I got to get the MNT Pocket Reform set up. I've got to get my editing set up for on the go working. And then I think that should be pretty much all I really need to set up in the most part, because my phones are already set up and all that stuff. I've already got my DEF CON phone I've been using for the past 2 years, which is Graphene OS on a Pixel 7a. Eventually I'll get a new phone, but it's still supported and I don't use that phone too much. But yeah, so thank you all for joining me. If you haven't already, make sure to join the Discord and, of course, all of my socials. I am on Discord. I'm on Matrix. I have a Mastodon. I have a Blue Sky. And, YouTube, Twitch, TikTok, the Kicks, all of that stuff. But, of course, if you're on Twitch, stick around for the raid. Thank you all. Happy hacking. I love y'all. Stay safe. And if you can choose to be anything in this world, choose to be kind. Stay safe. See you next time.